Welcome to this candidate forum for the Westwood Planning Board in the 2019 local elections. There are 3 candidates running for 2 open seats on the Planning Board, and this is the only contested race in Westwood. The election will be held on Tuesday, April 30th. I'm Karen Price, a member of the League of Women Voters of Needham, and I will serve as the moderator for this forum. This forum is a collaboration between the League of Women Voters of Westwood and Westwood Media Center. The League of Women Voters is responsible for communicating with candidates and organizing the format, questions, and moderator. Westwood Media Center is responsible for the taping, live broadcasting, and release of this forum for the general public. Members of both the League and Westwood Media Center may be politically active, but we have specific procedures in place to ensure the integrity of our forum and fulfill our commitment to being nonpartisan organizations that neither supports nor opposes any political parties or candidates. Candidates were not given questions ahead of time and have not interacted with the League for any information ahead of this discussion. We will begin by introducing the candidates. David Atkins is an incumbent and current chair of the Planning Board. Mike McCusker is also an incumbent member of the Planning Board, and Bill DeLay is the 3rd candidate. Each member will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. We will then proceed with the questions that have been submitted ahead of the forum. Each candidate has an opportunity to answer in 1 minute. The order of the candidates will rotate with each question. We drew numbers at random, and we will start with Mr. DeLay. Your opening statement, please.
Yes. Hi, I'm Bill DeLay, and I'd like to thank the League and the Westwood Media Center for having us. I've been a resident of Westwood for 40 years. My wife and I have been active in the community during our residence here, being involved in Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Little League, and other community groups. If elected, my priorities will be accountability. I will propose that the Planning Board perform a comprehensive zoning audit to ensure that our approach to zoning is holistic. 2, outreach. I will work to institute a policy that all residents potentially affected by new developments are fully informed of the potential impacts. Number 3, smart growth. I will advocate to restore the balance between our commercial owners' needs and our residents' needs. We can maintain a commercial constituency without sacrificing elements that make Westwood unique. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McCusker.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael McCusker. I am running for re-election to the Westwood Planning Board. I've grown up in town. I've been here most of my life. In town, I've coached Westwood hockey, Westwood baseball, Westwood basketball, Westwood flag football. I've lived in this town for many years, and I've seen a lot of changes in this town. And if re-elected, I will continue on with the good works that this board, this good hard works that this board has been doing for the last years. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Atkins.
Good afternoon. My name is David Atkins. I am currently the chair of the Westwood Planning Board, and I'm running for re-election and asking for your support. First of all, let me apologize for my appearance. I was in a bicycle accident a couple of weeks ago and kind of disheveled looking here, but broke my collarbone and everything. But my wife Jennifer and I moved to Westwood in 2005, just before the birth of our son Jason. I have 3 children. They're now all in different schools. Marshall is in the 5th grade at the Hanlon. Jason's in the middle school at Thurston. And my daughter Shay has just started high school, so we're right in the thick of things with that. But when I first moved to town, I wanted to get involved in the town, and I started a website called Westwood Blog. I got a lot of information out about the Westwood Station project back in those days, and I got more and more involved in things, which led to 3 years ago deciding that I wanted to run for Planning Board. When I ran for Planning Board, I emphasized 3 principles. One was that I wanted to promote meaningful transparency and resident participation in the process. 2, that I wanted to be a part of development that enhances our community for the long term. And 3, any opportunity I could to promote safer walking and biking in town. I wanted to see what the Planning Board how they could help with that. So those are the things. I think the focus of my involvement in the last year as chair, I've really made a strong effort to increase the transparency and engagement with our citizens, and I will continue to do that. I ask for your support to continue serving the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on with the questions. Please be mindful of the time, 1 minute to answer, and we'll start with Mr. Atkins. What unique characteristic do you bring to the planning board?
Well, I think the most unique perspective, I have a lot of different strengths. And so as I was trained as an attorney originally, so I have kind of a legal perspective. But I also have done a lot of work with social media and connection to engaging with residents. And so I think the strongest thing that I've brought to this process is the willingness to try to get the information out to people as to what's going on and to welcome people into the process. Even though sometimes it's uncomfortable and contentious, I think that in the end it makes for a better process. So I've tried to amplify those things to help on the board, to serve on the board.
Thank you. And Mr. McCusker, 1 minute.
I keep it simple. I speak honestly. I speak directly. I don't try to sugarcoat things. And I like to think I get the information out straight. You don't have to listen between the words for me. I just tell you how it is. I think that's what I bring to the board.
Thank you. And Mr. DeLay.
I want to work with the residents, particularly keeping mindful of residents that are going to be directly or closely affected by any zoning change. So I think if you're within 100 yards or so, those people are going to be impacted. Mostly, I would weigh what they have to say more than somebody that lived a mile away. But I would look at the whole town holistically, but keep in mind that the people being really affected, they should have a big voice in what's going on.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next question. Name a decision that was good made by the planning board and one that was detrimental. Starting with Mr. McCusker.
A few years ago at town meeting, we introduced an article to change the way we handle non-conforming properties in the town, which was resulting in homes being torn down and replaced with much larger homes on smaller lots. Unconforming lots, we changed that from a special permit to a variance, which I believe has saved a lot of homes in the town and the starter stock, which is becoming more scarce in the town, and it's very, very important to this town. So I'm very proud of that article. Detrimental, I don't know of anything that was detrimental. It depends on who you ask. The Islington project had some opposition. And when it comes to me making decisions, I keep it very simple. And it's like the scales, whichever way it tips. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. DeLay.
As far as detrimental, I think he referred to the Islington project. I, for one, thought that the property should have maintained in Westwood hands and not been turned over to a developer. So I would think that that could have been handled better. We could have found more use for our own property. As far as something that's been good for the town, I would think that looking at some of the projects down on Westwood Station and moving some of the zoning to that particular area and make it more commercial, I think it's been pretty good.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Atkins.
So I think for a decision that we made that was beneficial or a good decision, I actually think that the Islington project was a good decision, because we took that project through many hearings and we did everything we could to make it the best possible project. That's what I always viewed our role as, to listen to people's concerns and to build in modifications to that project. And then we gave it to the selectmen and to the town meeting to deal with the negotiations and the financial aspects of it. but I think we went through a lot of difficult decisions on that and ultimately came up with something that's going to have long-term benefits for the village of Islington, where I live. So I think that's a good decision. Bad decisions, I don't know of a bad decision, more so some of the challenges that we've had lately with not making a decision on some issues about zoning, where we've attempted to improve the zoning, but there's been a lot of confusion among residents about what we were actually trying to do, and we failed to really communicate that well, and so in the end, we didn't achieve some of the things we wanted to do that would have been for the benefit of everyone. But that's kind of something we just have to work on and continue the process.
Okay, thank you. Next question, starting with Mr. DeLay. What do you consider the appropriate relationship between the planning board and developers?
I think we have to, if a developer comes with a petition, I think we have to look at it. And then I think we need to listen to the residents that it's going to affect. I think after that we need to investigate and act on it. But I think we need to do it slowly and not rush into it. I don't think there's, sometimes I see these plans come and the planning board reacts to a developer's needs in a very short period. I would prefer to be proactive than reactive. I've heard that people on the planning board, they say that they're reactive. I would rather be proactive, and that's why I'd like to do a comprehensive zoning review. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Atkins?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
What do you consider the appropriate relationship between the planning board and developers?
Well, so first of all, we are not able to have a direct communication with the developers, but I think the relationship through communicating with our staff and everything is that we need to help create success, like to give them guidance so that when they propose something, it is consistent with our bylaws and consistent with what's in the best interest of the town. So I think we do have to hold firm on certain issues in the bylaws. We had a recent discussion about a sidewalk. Is it going to be 4 feet? Is it going to be 5 feet? And on some of those issues, I mean, we have to hold the line on some of these concerns with the developers. But we also have to, behind the scenes, we have to state what our reasons are. And so it's kind of communicating with our staff so that they can tell the developer what are the concerns here. A lot of times we get questions from the developer. Make it clear what our decisions are based on so that future developers can come in and propose something that will get approved ultimately.
Okay, and Mr. McCusker?
As Dave said, we don't have a relationship with the builder. Our staff has a our staff and the builder's representation will have a lot of talks, and they'll submit proposals, and we will go over those and render a best decision we can. But it's very important to have those conversations between our staff and their representation, because in the end, it's in everyone's best interest for us, for this to be the best project it can be. And communication is the best way to achieve that.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Are your current methods for public involvement in your decision-making adequate? Are there different ways you can encourage input? And we'll start with Mr. McCusker.
Well, I interact with a lot of people throughout town. Like I've said before, my decision-making process is very simplistic, like the scales of justice. I put all the information on the scale for the project, against the project, and whichever way it tips, that's pretty much, I keep it very simplistic. It's very important that all aspects of the project go onto the scale, and then I'll make my decision from there. It's for the benefit of the whole town, not just one area.
Okay, Mr. Atkins?
So I've thought about this a lot in terms of how can we better engage residents, and our hearing process it's not the best process because we have to have a long presentation, people waiting for a long time, and then they sort of say what they want, and we listen. But it's a very formalistic process. So we try to do things like I've encouraged the creation of a Facebook page for the planning board to share the materials. All of the materials that we review prior to our meetings are published online. And so I kind of say, you know, you have what we have in terms of that. It's a lot of documents to read through. So transparency-wise, we are providing the materials. We're linking to them as best we can. I know people have a hard time finding them sometimes, but it's we're doing a lot of things in that area. And I guess the real challenge is how to engage people in a conversation about what they want about things. And that's, I hope, through our comprehensive plan process that's coming up, we'll be able to have more of that, of kind of getting at the bigger picture of what residents want for the future and then building that into our process.
Thanks. Mr. DeLay.
Again, I would approach the people that are being impacted or by any project within an area. And I would invite them to a meeting. I would take our time. We don't need to have just one meeting on a particular article. I would want their input. Not that I wouldn't want the whole town input, but those being directly affected by any particular project, they need to be listened to. So I feel that we need to listen to those people, and that would probably be, one way or another, I think that we have to get to those people and let them know what's going on and how they will be directly affected by any particular project. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question. This is about the town centers, it says. What should our town centers look like? And you can answer that however you want. Any thoughts you have on town centers? And we'll start with Mr. Atkins.
So I believe our town centers should be villages, which is kind of the model that's been laid out in the comprehensive plan from 2000 and will probably continue to be. A village is a self-contained community, essentially a place where people can live nearby and go walk to shops and restaurants and things they need. I think that that's the focus of what our town centers should look like, or centers that serve the residential community that surrounds them, as opposed to being sort of destination places from other towns or large commercial developments. So I think that that's the charm of Westwood, is really kind of how these town centers exist as villages and are much, you can walk around the neighborhood and you know people, you run into people you know all the time, and people are happy to know that they can go down to the CVS or the Islington Pizza, and it's all very convenient.
Thank you. Mr. DeLay?
I don't know if we have one particular center. We have Westwood Center, which is has the town hall and the police station and the fire station. It has a strip mall. So I wouldn't say that that was really a walk-around type place. Islington is in the midst of changing. I'm not sure what it's going to be like. I know they've gone through a lot of plans, but I understand that all the plans aren't going to be followed through, so I'm not sure what that particular center is going to look like. But my idea of a center is, yes, an area that people can congregate in and meet one another and walk around and go to shops and what have you. But
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Mr. McCusker?
I agree 100% with both these gentlemen. We need a community center. We have two. We have Islington Center, Islington Village, and Westwood Center. And those economic engines for this town have been stalled for 50 years. And I think we really need to look hard and to go forth with a great project to get them back online, because it's what this town needs. We need to retain our split tax rate between residential and commercial. So we need to boost up our commercial tax rates in our center of town.
Okay, thank you. So I'll take this next question as relevant to what you just said. Where do you see the balance between commercial and residential tax rates? And we're starting with Mr. DeLay.
we say we need more commercial, and we need more commercial tax rate, but I see an article coming up that we're going to offer commercial welfare basically on University Ave, where we're trying to get more income from. So we're going to give them a reduction for some of the businesses down there. I'm not sure what business and how much. So again, it's a residential town. We do need a commercial base to offset some of our tax dollars. So I'm not sure which way we're headed. I'll wait till after town meeting. Really, I can't answer that question right now. Thanks.
Okay. And Mr. Atkins. Mr. McCusker.
The balance between, if we fall below a certain percentage, then we lose the split tax rate. And we have a common tax rate between, and every resident's tax rate will go up. I'm not exactly sure of that number.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure of that number, but we need to keep that above whatever percentage we need to keep our split tax rate. I don't have enough information to speak about that right now. As far as tax giveaways for commercial or corporate needs, those are marketing strategies to get these people in town. I think it's very important moving forward, marketing-wise, to get it done.
Mr. Atkins.
Yes, we definitely need to retain the split rate tax, because we can see that there are other towns where it's not a split rate and people are paying much higher property taxes. The burden of the services we provide, our excellent school system, everything is part of that is borne by our commercial sector now. So clearly we need to keep that in place. I mean, it's really more of a question for the select board in terms of how to manage that, but I can understand how it plays into the development. It's definitely a motivation. Like, it would be great if we could have only uses that weren't high tax generators, but it's an important aspect of all the development is that tax revenue will allow us to continue to deliver the same and better services because of the split tax rate, because we're bringing in additional revenue to fund additional things.
Thank you. Next question. As the new term begins after the election, what would you consider the first thing that needs to be accomplished? And we'll start with Mr. DeLay.
I think the first thing, I think the planning board should perform a comprehensive zoning audit. And that's to ensure that we have proper zoning everywhere. I've seen Airbnbs come into neighborhoods. Basically, they're a business. You have, in these neighborhoods, people who live there 20, 30, 40 years, and now you have people that are there for 20, 30, 40 hours. So you never really get to know these people, and it's very uncomfortable for the people that live around these. And I don't think we should have any zoning law that makes the residents that have a financial and emotional interest in Westwood uncomfortable. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Atkins?
So I think the planning board we take applications. Basically, people give us applications, or developers, and we review the applications. So we don't control kind of what the inflow, what the pipeline is. So our focus on things we can be proactive about, it's really the bylaws or things like our comprehensive plan. And I think that that's what I would say is the most significant thing, is that the ongoing development of a revised comprehensive plan, master plan for Westwood. There's a committee that's been formed to do that work, but we support it, and then we'll ultimately review it and approve it. But that process is an opportunity to engage many more residents and to raise some of the issues that residents have been raising and figure out where we want the future of the town to go. So I would say that moving that process forward should be a top priority.
And Mr. McCusker?
I think we should start with an article we left on the table at this past town meeting, a zoning issue that we need to clarify, and I think that should be one of our first priorities in the new board term.
Okay, thank you. Next question. In light of extreme weather conditions due to climate change, Does the planning board have a role? And we'll start with Mr. McCusker.
Well, long-term planning, comprehensive planning going forward with, it's a difficult balance because we're not really sure what we can accomplish. Stormwater regulations and the such can always be looked at and upgraded. It's not a very defining thing I could go forward with and answer.
Okay. Mr. Atkins.
So yeah, I get back to the planning board's role is, again, it's hard to have proactive things that the planning board can do, but there are a couple of things. We did have an article, we recommended an article to town meeting to make it easier for residents to have solar panels on their homes, and that went through pretty smoothly. The comprehensive plan this time around, we've added a section for resiliency and sustainability. And so I think as the comprehensive plan is being developed, there'll be a lot of discussions about what sorts of things can be done around climate change. Personally, I think climate change is the most important issue nationally, internationally, statewide. At the planning board level, we would need tools to implement that. So people have talked about ideas like requiring solar panels in every new business. Well, we can't do that unless there's a bylaw for that. So I think it's premature right now to say we can't do anything as a board to require things like that, but we would be open to changes to the bylaws that might require more sustainability planning. It goes back to the comprehensive plan and what the residents want to make a priority.
And Mr. DeLay.
Again, that's where we have to be proactive instead of reactive. They say that we can't be proactive, but yes, I believe that we can be proactive. We can bring zoning changes and proposals. We can be solicitors to zoning changes, and I think we need to, again, sit back, look at our zoning laws, and be proactive and not reactive in that case.
All right. Now it's time for closing statements. You have 1 minute to answer, and we're going to go in reverse order of our opening statements, so we'll start with Mr. Atkins.
Thank you. So again, my name is David Atkins. I'm running for re-election and asking for your vote. When I ran last time, I had a slogan I made up that was, I said, with Dave Atkins on the planning board, you'll know what's coming. And I've come to realize that was kind of a little over-ambitious thing to say. I can't guarantee that everybody's going to know everything that's coming, but I can commit to transparency and engagement with residents and continuing this process of looking for ways to improve things, of listening to the feedback from residents. And that's my promise is basically to continue that process. And so I hope that you'll support re-electing me to this board. I hope that I tried to follow a consensus building approach on our board so that really all of these are decisions of our board. It's the board. It's not one person. So I hope you'll allow me to continue to serve the town. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. McCusker?
I'm running for re-election for the planning board. I hope I could get your vote. My goal going forward is continue the work that's already been started. There's a lot more work to be done. And if you're looking for common sense, straightforward planning, I'm your guy. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. DeLay?
Again, Westwood's a residential town. I think the residents have a financial and emotional interest in the town. I think they need to be heard and involved in any particular zoning change. I look to work with the residents so they don't feel uncomfortable with their interest in the town. As Dave's said before, he made a statement that last time he ran that you know what you're going to get. Well, you're right, you don't know what you're going to get, but we're going to work to get this planning board, I think, proactive and take care of the residents and work with the commercial interest in town, and also work with the selectmen and the town planner, and hopefully we can get a majority of residents feeling very good about Westwood, and I would like your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd like to thank our candidates for joining us for this thoughtful forum. We would like to remind everyone that Election Day will be Tuesday, April 30th. You can contact the town clerk's office or go to the town's website to look up polling locations, times, and any other questions about voting. We thank everyone who helped organize this event and submitted questions for our candidates. Please remember to vote on April 30th. Thank you for tuning in.